Titanic Talk with Nelson Aspen and Alexandra Boyd. Here we feature stories from the independent documentary Ship of Dreams Titanic movie diaries and everything else to do with the iconic ship. From James Cameron's epic groundbreaking movie to the history and legacy of Titanic herself. Join us and our special guests as we continue the 25th anniversary celebrations of Titanic. This is your first-class ticket to everything aboard the Ship of Dreams.
Okay, so this is Rose DeWitt Pawcater, Beadles. She I thought it was quite appropriate for this call. We decided to get a puppy. We knew it would be a Jack or a Rose, but we didn't know which gender we would get. But it was a girl, so she's a Rose.
What kind of doggy is she?
She's a long-haired Chihuahua. So everyone thinks she's a terrier, but she's actually a Chihuahua. She's getting the little tufts on her ears that are the long hairs get. Yeah. But I just thought she would say hi. If she makes noise, I'll move her, but she has been kind of sitting in her kennel next to me while I work lately. So
if she makes noise, we'll ask you, what is that? And you can introduce her, because then we'll, explain the noise and have a bonus.
Absolutely. You could be bonus content, but for now I'm going to put you up. Okay.
Like my pugs love to be bonus content.
Well, I'm Nelson Aspen, and welcome to Titanic Talk. We get to visit with someone who feels like part of our extended Titanic family, another podcaster, a friend under the umbrella of Ship of Dreams Titanic movie diaries. So we're very excited to bring her back into our Zoom meetings. We guest starred on her podcast, and now she's come to ours. Alexandra Boyd, filmmaker of Ship of Dreams Titanic movie diaries. Please make the introduction.
Well, I'm very happy to introduce L.A. Reid Beadles, who forged ahead and created a path through the ocean with her podcast, Unsinkable. I think is the most brilliant name for a Titanic-based podcast. And we've been guests on her podcast, which was a joy. And actually, one of the things that made me think I think she could be one of our favorite people is because on your website, on the About page, there's a photograph of you sitting very elegantly with an enormous glass of red wine. And I thought, LA is our people. LA, welcome.
Oh, yeah. That's I would say that photograph is very representative of my personality. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think I say in the About Me section that when I'm not talking about Titanic, I'm talking about movies, wine, or food. So it remains accurate.
Francis Ford Coppola had great success with the Coppola wines. So perhaps, LA, you should investigate a Titanic line of wines. I mean, it could be a whole label that we should explore together.
Gosh,
well, that's not a bad idea. There's Titanic Brewery that's in England. And then in Belfast, the Titanic Distillery is opening. I think they had a soft launch already, which makes me so mad because I was in Belfast last August and they weren't quite ready to open. But yeah, I think Titanic.
You just have to go back.
Oh no, I have to. I'm desperately trying to work with the venues there to get me there for a live show. So one day. But all that to say, I'm so happy to be here, and you've got me figured out. So I'm among friends.
You've become such a friend to the Titanic enthusiast community. You've become so popular and so, I don't know, just sort of like the sister we Titaniacs always wanted, asking the questions we want asked, and making everybody feel comfortable in all in the same lifeboat. Tell us your Titanic origin story, LA.
I was 13 years old when the movie came out. So I was the perfect demographic. Leo mania hit me so hard. I still have Leo mania. When my husband married me, he knew he was marrying me and Leo. We also have an understanding that if Leo ever shows up at the door, I can go. So so Leo mania hit hard. I had all the posters. I had the movie poster all over my room. I used to read Vanity Fair and find every little bit about Kate or Leo I could find. And then as I became a teenager, that sort of grew into an interest in the ship as well. And so from age 13 to 17, 18, I just became a Titaniac. And then something sad happened, which is when I went to study history at the academic level. I went to grad school. I have a PhD in American history. I studied that period. So my specialty is about 1880 to about 1920, 1930. But Titanic has never taken a hold in the academic community the way I feel, and a lot of us feel that it should. So it wasn't really a topic that people wrote about. And I let other things influence me. And I love what I wrote about, and I love what I taught, and I don't regret anything. But there's a little part of me that wishes I could go back and bring it into that setting.
You could always do a second PhD. Come on.
No, thank you.
Come on.
Well, it's like that, isn't it? That was a Thompson Twins song, Doctor, Doctor. So you could have two doctors, right?
I think I'm good with one. Although to be clear, my children don't believe I'm actually a doctor. They say, "Mommy, you don't fix boo-boos. You don't do surgery. You're
Where's your stethoscope?" Yeah.
So they do not believe me. So basically, the perfect moment appeared. I taught for years in university, did my PhD research. I was published a bit in some other topics, and then I took some time off to have my kids. And when I reemerged and wanted to start writing and researching more again, it was the pandemic. And the podcast just became the perfect way to jump into something, reignite a love of something that I'd always wanted to return to. And so my goal with the podcast has been exactly what you said, to make it a safe space for Titaniacs to come and ask questions and bring up topics and to be seen. And then also, secondly, to sort of bridge that gap that I've seen between Titaniacs and the academic history. I think both, we can meet in the middle, and I think that Titanic will be even more respected, and the legacy of it will last even longer if we can bridge that gap.
Yeah, being seen is exactly what you said when you first saw Alexandra's documentary, the Ship of Dreams documentary, because I recall you'd said you felt as if that's what moved you about the documentary. You felt as a Titanic enthusiast, you were being seen. And that is sort of the gift of that. And explain Alexandra and LA, how you found each other.
Instagram. The old IG. All roads lead across, that Venn diagram I keep talking about is, we just keep bumping up against one another. And right before we launched the film, I lost my Instagram account. That thing where they go, "Oh, you violated some unknown rule."
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, "No, please come back. Can I have my account back, please?" No, you can't. So I had been Alex Write Act Direct or something. And
that's right. Yeah.
So I had to start from scratch. But as we were launching the documentary, I was like, well, okay, what's my handle going to be? And it's a contraction of First Class Woman, which is my character, my role in Titanic, FSTCLSSWMN. And so that's
so good with that.
You had it for 25.
You memorized that.
So I had to sort of start from scratch, but started pushing out. There's a film coming, and there's a podcast coming, and the old magic of hashtags, if they're to be believed, bring us all together. And also, LA, it's not just me and you, it's all of our Titanic fans who find us. The algorithm just keeps going. I'm whinging on like I know all about about social media and how it works, but it worked in this instant.
And it certainly worked for you, LA. I mean, were you anticipating the kind of success and fandom? I mean, I want to talk more about this event that you recently hosted, and that's because you have a fan base of your own, Titanic related and otherwise. But did this all sort of take you by surprise? The podcasting success?
It did. I did, and it was true pandemic times, and it was a project, and I said, I'll do 10 episodes. I told my husband, I said, I'll do 10, And that will sort of scratch this itch I've got of reading all the new books and doing this research. And if people are listening, maybe I'll make a few more. I thought maybe 10 people would listen. I am not kidding. And it's not a super short runway. It's been a longer runway, but now I've got, tens of thousands of listeners all over the world. And I hear from people every day. I think I might have told you this when I had you on my podcast. I get messages from people who tell me they are going through a really hard time in their lives, and they're Titaniacs from way back, and they open up the pod player, they go on a walk, they listen to my podcast, and it helps their mental health. And that, I tear up as I talk about it. That in itself makes every single bit of work I've ever done worth it. I had a woman message me and say she was going through postpartum anxiety and feeling horrible, and this podcast was helping her feel human. And I've been there. I have kids. And so there's this very human element of, I love to produce it. I love to make this thing. I love Titanic. I love history. But what's become the more important part is people being seen, people feeling like they have a safe space to totally nerd out on this thing that they love. And yeah, I never anticipated it would be this big, but it wouldn't be this big without the listeners and without the people that I've gotten to know. I have made friends all over the world. I have a good friend in Australia now. I have a great friend in Canada now. You guys, I meet people every day online through this thing, and it never ceases to amaze me.
You're like the Casey Kasem of Titanic, of doing a long distance dedication. No, it's really amazing.
It sort of feels like, it feels incredible. And actually I go on hiatus during the summer, and for my season 2 finale, I'm doing a Q&A. I just did a call for questions. So I'm very curious to see questions people send me. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah. And we'll go back to the Instagram thing. That plays a huge role. I think the audience built because of Instagram. The Titanic community on Instagram, as you guys well know, is huge and far reaching, and it continues to grow. And I do think it creates that safe space that people are looking for. And
you shared some of those photos on your Instagram of your recent event that you hosted. I wanted more photos. I wanted you got to give me some more. Tell us about that. Tell the audience about what that was.
So it was really exciting. It was my first official live show, and I couldn't have asked for a better place for it to be. So it was at the Grand Hotel, which is on Mackinac Island. I had never been to Mackinac before. It had always been on my dream list of places to go. And listeners and watchers, you may hear squeaky toy. My dog, Rose Dewitt Pockator, is right here in her kennel. Maybe I can bring her out before we end.
Please do.
But yeah, I had always wanted to go there, just as a historian, as a lover of history of that period. So the Grand was built in 1887. It's one of only 11 hotels. Oh shoot! Can I show? Come here.
Was she just really floating on a panel down there?
She's so little. So
sweet.
It's one of only hotels that were built of wood from this era, where the leisure class really was trying to escape the city during the summer. So that's this grouping of hotels that was built in the late 1800s. Only 11 in the country survived. There used to be hundreds. It's gorgeous. Mackinac is famous for no cars are allowed. So it was just a beautiful setting. So the Grand Hotel does a Titanic weekend. They used to do it every year, but COVID got in the way. So this was the first year back. And I was very fortunate. They asked me to come and do a live show and host an event. And so I gave a talk about the food and the drink on board Titanic, which really coincided with what they were accomplishing thematically with the weekend, because we had a last night on the Titanic dinner. They had someone playing Captain Smith. I kid you not, as the dinner ended, Captain Smith and some of the other cosplayers that were employees were coming around and telling everyone to go get their life jackets from their rooms. So it was wild.
It was immersive. It was immersive.
Well, that's
literally immersed in the North Sea. Yes.
We were surrounded by Lake Huron, so I'm glad there was no trying to dip us in the cold of the lake or something. But yeah, I met the really beautiful cosplayers were there. Some people who had spent obviously a lot of time and money on their era appropriate costumes, which ties into what you guys have talked with about people with, recreating some of the clothes from the movie and things like that. But yeah, I just so fortunate. It was so fun. I really want to do a lot more. I want to host a lot of events like that. It was nice to get to do my first one in such a gorgeous place.
It's quite amazing, actually, how many levels of participation with people's passion, whether it's to cosplay or collect props and costumes, or to just watch the film over and over again, or participate. Or I'm going to Titanic Con in Las Vegas in August.
Oh yeah.
And there'll be about 10 or 12 of us from the film, and we'll get to meet, really meet in person some of these people who are interested in the big piece, because it's the anniversary of the exhuming of the big piece.
I was bringing it up.
Yes, and it's the Luxor there. It's like this mosaic, this multifaceted way to experience this story. And Nelson and I always seem to come back to it like, what is it? What is the fascination? And I keep saying, I don't know. I have immersed myself in this particular way to experience the story through my documentary and through meeting fans and talking this over and over. And as I keep saying, I don't think it matters, because I just think it's an incredible memorial to the 1,500 people who lost their lives. And then the descendants who are continuing to, they literally have a direct line to those memories. And then those of us who have a creative way of expressing ourselves also get to have these extraordinary experiences. I think it's not like Star Wars or Doctor Who or
no.
Well, that's because it's funny you
thing.
say that, Alexandra, because in Star Wars or Doctor Who or whatever kind of cosplay you mentioned, they're fictional characters. And now we're talking about people who lived lives and perished, and even those who survived went on largely because of post-traumatic stress to be very troubled. There were suicides from survivors,
alcoholism,
and reputations were ruined, fortunes were ruined. I mean, just there really were not many happy endings to be told after Titanic. So it's interesting, if you're going to cosplay Molly Brown or the Countess or Bruce Ismay, you're actually portraying people that were unfortunate, no matter how wealthy they may have been.
There's no way.
That's a big point of difference.
Yeah, there's no way around it. And I will say too, the people that unfortunately are forgotten a lot are the crew. And in my talk I gave at Mac, and all this ties back into that, I used the lens of food and drink to talk about the crew. I talked about 2 or 3 specific people that unfortunately didn't make it, that we have a lot of sources for and a lot of information on. And I really wanted to show the process of making food and drink on board Titanic, that before it sank, this was a business endeavor. This was a workplace. People forget about Titanic as a workplace, and people that worked on that ship and survived. That's a whole nother level of trauma. I mean, everyone's trauma is very specific
but they
to
survived
their experience.
And they went on to work on other ships that also
they had to go work on
perils
other ships.
and disasters. Yes. The life at sea was really quite dangerous and perilous.
It's brutal. Yeah. And a lot of the crew that survived, as you mentioned, had very hard lives after a lot of the passengers did. And I think there are a lot of people on board the ship that don't get talked about enough. And that's what I try to do on my podcast is I do some episodes that are on specific passengers or crew, and I deep dive. And then that leads into other conversations about, other themes in history. I'm doing an episode on the beer that was on Titanic right now. And so that allows me to talk about the history of brewing and the history of who would have served the beer. And it really, there are 1,000 branches on this tree. And every time I pick one branch to jump on, that person's story gets told. And that's really my ultimate goal, is just to keep everybody alive. When you say someone's name, they stay alive. And that's really the main goal of the pod when it's all boiled down. 100%.
Well, and we meet new people and we come up with new, there's a zillion topics to cover. Do you have any topics in particular that are sort of on your to-do list or to research list? Some questions that haven't been answered for you yet?
Yes, about 100. But I would say the couple that really stick with me that I haven't I've been scared to do, but I want to. One would be, talking about the artifacts and RMS Titanic Inc., bringing those up, the debates about what should be brought up or if it should be brought up. There's a very intense legal history, unfortunately, very politicized history among different factions in the Titanic community. I've been scared to do that episode because I fear that in presenting it that way, I might end up contributing to there being, I certainly am all about unity in this situation and everyone feeling together and seen. And so I've been scared about how to put that episode together, but I'm very intrigued by that. There's a lot to discuss.
One of our guests on the podcast, Pablo O'Hana, wrote a very succinct and wonderful article on that argument or that discussion.
Oh, I'll put a link in the notes. Get a hold of this. Yes.
And I agree. Nelson and I could do an entire podcast just on this idea, and I don't mind delving into it. I feel like the artifacts are there. It's a grave site. There's a great deal of argument to leave it untouched. The fact remains it has not been untouched because people will go down and take stuff. And some of it, is jewelry that's been returned to the descendants of the families or whatever. That's noble and notable. Just with this new digital twin that's come out, we are learning, they are learning all the time new stories about this incredible story. So to put some of that up and to keep educating people, I think it's a dreadful conundrum to have to make a decision about.
It's so difficult. And to be clear, I and my listeners know this, I love art. I mean, public history is a very important part of my personal history, and I love the artifacts. I think where I want to look into the sort of legal history of it more and understand better is just, who is the salvager in possession, how that works. Maybe should we look at other options on that? Like how the artifacts are stored, displayed, that is where, to me, those questions are a lot harder to answer.
And once they come out and they're literally out in the world, like, when people looted the pyramids, now I heard something the other day on the radio about this came out of a pharaoh's pyramid. Did it? How did you... tell me when and how that was found. And then, of course, there's a lot of fakery. There's a lot of people.
And then how do you prevent that? Exactly. 100%. And when it gets easier to access something, and Titanic is getting easier to access. I mean, you look at Ocean Gate, running these tours there and things like that. And there have been a couple of situations where artifacts have made it on the black market, and they couldn't be pinpointed to any official expedition. So I think there have been some black market expeditions going down, funded by what would have had to be someone with very deep pockets. So that's interesting. So there's just so many themes to explore with the artifacts, and certainly would never want to imply that to me, their existence is crucial. And to me, it's just a question of how do we keep them, how do we keep them perfectly preserved so that so many generations can continue to learn from them? And then how do we...
might be this digital photography, though, you see, because it's so realistic and it's so detailed. Yeah. It's like you can, it looks like you're there. We have so much.
It's almost like you're on a tour of it. Yes. And Robert Ballard said this years ago. So Robert Ballard, who found the wreck in 1985, and he stayed really active in exploring the wreck. That's been his goal all along. He thinks it should be a digital museum. Let's get cameras down there. Let's get the technology down there. And I agree on some level. I think that's the way to go. So I'm like everyone, just kind of watching along as this unfolds, as we get these images and this technology, grows. It's amazing. I think we're going to see even more. I think we're going to see even more of it in increasing detail as the years go by, which makes what we all do even more exciting. So
now, Ella, you said you're taking the summer off from the podcast.
Yes.
Now, I want to know, are you going to do like a complete Titanic detox over the summer? Or are you going to do some recreational Titanic projects? Or, how, I want to know, how are you spending your summer vacation?
Taking care of this crazy pup. So my listeners know this. So we're moving to Asheville, North Carolina in June, which we're very excited about. I will finally have a full studio. So I'm going to spend the summer getting that set up and doing a lot of research. I won't completely Titanic detox. I'm working on a book proposal that has to do with Titanic right now. So that'll be a big thing on my sort of never-ending to-do list this summer. But yeah, I use the summer to detox a little bit though, here and there. It's nice to read in other realms. The kids are home from school, so a lot of chunks of the day, there's just no way I could work. So it's, the summer for me is a reset, some Titanic, some non-Titanic. And then, as I did last year, come back in the fall, hopefully feeling refreshed. I mean, my kids, who knows if that'll happen, hopefully feeling refreshed.
Are the kids into it? Do the kids appreciate Titanic?
They do. And they understand it. They've had to live with it so much the last few years that they do really understand, I think, the heaviness of it. And they've been to quite a few of the museums because we went to Ireland. They've been to the one in Tennessee. So they understand. I think they are a little burned out at the moment. To be 7 and 8 and know this much about Titanic, I think they're ready for a little break, but hopefully they'll cycle back. But we've read all of the kids' books and they have the posters in their rooms, and they're very supportive of me podcasting. And they say, my mommy's kind of a celebrity. I'm like, nope, definitely not. But they'll tell their friends that. So they're so supportive. But to be honest, I think they're a little Titanic out at the moment. So
it's funny because they didn't fight you to name the dog. But somebody messaged me through social media to ask me if I'd seen a particular exhibition. And I almost felt guilty for saying no. And then I realized it's like, you know what? I don't want to see everything because I still want things left to see, if that makes sense. I don't want to know everything about everything yet. And people sort of, if they correct you on something, yeah, I'm very happy to be corrected. I don't pretend like I'm not an authority on anything. But yeah,
no, same. And people tell me new things all the time. I have listeners email me with new research and information all the time. And this is what I always say is there's so much to know with Titanic. It's impossible to be the top no one could be the know-all top expert of Titanic. Now, some people are the experts on the construction of the ship, and they could school me on all of that. That is not my area. That's not, what I do. I'm cultural history and social history. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm constantly learning. I constantly am seeking out the new books. Listener recommendations have turned into some of the best episodes that I've done. So yeah, to me, doing this has been such an amazing way to take all of the skills that I have as a historian and do something just fun and new and interact with people. I mean, I never imagined myself in any form of podcasting or broadcasting this is so wild to me. I never saw myself doing this, but it's so fun. I'm just
wait till you get
that
new studio. It'll be amazing.
I know, so excited. Yeah. But yeah, this summer will be about, I really want to, keep improving the pod, whether it's sound quality through the new studio or just through research. It's just, constantly just looking ahead, basically.
Do you have a sneak peek for season 3? Are there some, but you mentioned like the legal ramifications of the wreck. I mean, are there any other topics you can tease us with?
Definitely going to tackle that finally. Another big one that I've been working on for months that I think will finally happen in the fall is Officer Lightoller. People have been asking for that one for pretty much since moment one that I posted the podcast. And there's so much on him. There's so much to piece together, and we have so many sources, including his own writings. So that one's been a beast. So that one is coming, and I think
and
people
a
are
native
going to be
Australian.
Really...
I hadn't realized he was a native Australian until recently.
Yes, and I have a friend of mine who's been on my podcast a couple of times, Chelsea Pinkard. She's a maritime historian and writer, and she is if you ever want to talk with anyone about the Australian connections to Titanic or Titanic in fiction, those are her 2 areas. She's fantastic. But yeah, I was talking to her a few weeks ago, learned things I didn't know. So all that to say, so some exciting big episodes coming in the fall. I've got a live show at the Titanic Museum in Pigeon Forge in July. And so people can, check my website and Instagram to stay updated on that. I think it's July 13th. But yeah, just hoping to get together some more live shows, hoping to keep doing, interactive events. And yeah, just my goal is to keep the research fresh, basically. So,
well, Nelson and I say when we started this just a few weeks ago, a couple of months ago, we know that we could just keep, and there's room for all of us as well. We're all coming from these different places and bumping into all the Titanic facts and figures and the social aspect and the technical aspect and all of that and all of the books that have been written that really, we could just go on forever.
And podcasts so cater to a person's attention span. You can listen for the 5 minutes that interest you, or you can listen for hours. I mean, there's just
there's long form, there's short form, there are interview. I mean, what you guys are doing is so great, in the interview format. There are 100 ways to do this. I am so sorry. You guys,
we love that you're busy with your dog, because what our audience may not be aware of is that Alexandra is usually juggling a couple of pugs.
Okay.
Does this, and I have a fire station and a police station beneath me, so there's always something else going on. LA, we're so grateful. Unsinkable. It's marvelous. You're marvelous. We feel so close to you. Thank you for being part of the Titanic Talk family. And we look forward to soon meeting you in person and not just over the Zoom.
Have you back on a podcast as well? Because
anytime, and I'll
revisit
and I'll have you guys back on. And Nelson, I'm going to be in New York in August, so I think I'm going to get to meet Nelson. We've emailed
you and
about it.
It's going to be like an affair to remember, but we're going to meet at the Strauss Memorial.
We're going to meet at the Strauss Memorial. We just have to make a plan, and then no talking for like a week before. And then we just have to both know we're going to show up. We're just going to be there. But yeah, I view this collaboration as ongoing. So, I mean, it was so lovely for you guys to have me on, but I want to have you guys back on at some point. We'll keep this conversation going, and we're all part of the same family.
We have some exciting things happening. We have some exciting things happening with the film as well. So there'll be catch-ups for you.
Yeah, you guys can come on and we'll catch everybody up more on the movie and that sort of thing. So yeah, perfect. This was lovely. Thanks for having me and Rose on.
Bye-bye, Rose. Bye-bye.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a review. And if you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button. For information on where you can see Ship of Dreams, Titanic Movie Diaries, go to shipofdreamsfilm.com. Titanic Talk is a production of Ship of Dreams Film Limited. At Titanic Talk, Nelson and I are looking for the ultimate superfans. Do you have a passion for James Cameron's Titanic or any of the other screen adaptations? Are you an amateur historian with a vast knowledge of the ship herself? We would love to invite you on our podcast. Come and talk Titanic with us and all things aboard the Ship of Dreams. To reach out, email info@shipofdreamsfilm.com. We look forward to hearing from you.